What if I told you that one of the most ordinary coins in America could be hiding an extraordinary secret, a secret so valuable it has changed lives overnight? A penny. Not gold, not silver. A penny you've probably held 1,000 times, maybe even tossed into a jar without a second thought. The 1981 Lincoln cent with no mint mark. A coin so common it feels invisible. And yet, under the right circumstances, this unassuming cent has been whispered about in auction halls, debated by experts, and tied to values that sound downright impossible. We're talking 5 figures, 6 figures, and in the most extreme, error-driven scenarios, numbers that climb toward the unthinkable. Millions. Sounds insane, right? That disbelief you feel right now is exactly why these stories begin the way they do. Because the greatest treasures are the ones nobody is looking for. Picture this. It's 1981. Gas is cheap by today's standards. Reagan is in the White House, and the U.S. Mint is striking billions of Lincoln cents. Philadelphia issues its coins without a mint mark, just as it always has. Nothing special, nothing flashy, just another year, another penny. Or so everyone thought. Because history has a funny way of hiding anomalies in plain sight. The 1981 no mint mark Lincoln cent wasn't supposed to be special. It wasn't a commemorative. It wasn't struck in precious metal. And yet, buried within those massive production runs were mistakes. Tiny deviations. Microscopic differences. Errors so subtle that most people would never notice them, but so dramatic to collectors that they can transform a 1-cent coin into a life-altering discovery. Here's the first twist. In the world of coin collecting, perfection isn't always king. Sometimes, imperfection is where the real money lives. Errors are the fingerprints of chaos inside a system designed for absolute precision. And when the system slips, even for a split second, the result can be historic. The 1981 Lincoln cent sits at a crossroads in U.S. coinage history. Just 1 year before the mint would radically change the composition of the penny, pressure was already mounting. Production was intense. Dies were used hard. Quality control was pushed to its limits. And when that happens, mistakes multiply. Double dies, misaligned dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, weak strikes that tell a deeper story. Each one a cliffhanger, each one a potential jackpot. Imagine looking at Lincoln's face and noticing something feels off. The date looks thicker than it should. The letters in Liberty seem to echo, like a ghost image behind the real thing. Is it damage? Or is it doubling? That single question can be the difference between pocket change and a down payment on a house. And then there are the stories that stop people cold. Collectors still talk about high-grade 1981 Lincoln cents that surfaced with dramatic errors, authenticated and encapsulated, igniting bidding wars that shocked even seasoned numismatists. Coins that shouldn't exist. Coins that slipped through unnoticed for decades. Coins that, once discovered, rewrote expectations. One reported top condition sale reached an eye-watering $844,000. Let that number sink in. From 1 cent to nearly $1 million. Not because the coin was old, not because it was gold, but because it was wrong in exactly the right way. And that's where the suspense deepens, because for every confirmed, slabbed, auction record coin, there are thousands still out there. In dresser drawers, in coffee cans, in rolls bought from the bank and forgotten. The 1981 no mint mark cent isn't rare by itself. That's the misdirection. The magic lies in the anomaly hiding inside the ordinary. What if the next one is sitting in your house right now? Think about how many pennies pass through your hands every year. Think about how many you've never really looked at. How many times have you assumed value was obvious, flashy, impossible to miss? That assumption has cost people fortunes. Here's another revelation most people never hear. Condition can multiply value beyond reason. A common 1981 cent in worn condition is worth a cent. But take that same coin, add a dramatic error, preserve it in pristine, near-perfect condition, and suddenly you're in a completely different universe. A universe where collectors don't ask, is it worth anything? They ask, how high will this go? Auction rooms get quiet in those moments. Bidders lean forward. Phones light up. Because they know something the public doesn't. They know that these coins are finite. That once they're discovered and locked away in collections, the door closes forever. And then comes the biggest pattern interrupt of all. Not every valuable coin looks valuable. Some of the most important finds began with doubt, with skepticism, with someone almost putting the coin back where it came from. One glance, one hesitation, one decision to take a closer look. That's all it takes to ask yourself this. If a single penny could be worth more than your car, your house, your retirement account, wouldn't you want to know? The beauty of the 1981 no mint mark Lincoln cent is that it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't glitter. It doesn't demand attention. It waits, quietly, patiently, for someone curious enough to look twice. And here's the final twist, the one that keeps people awake at night. Most legendary coin discoveries weren't made by experts. They were made by ordinary people. People just like you. People who decided, on a whim, to check their change. That's the real story here. Not just the money, not just the headlines, but the possibility. The idea that hidden value still exists in a world that feels picked over. That history still slips through the cracks. That wealth can still be found where no one thinks to search. The 1981 Lincoln cent with no mint mark isn't a guarantee. It's something far more powerful. It's an invitation. An invitation to slow down, to look closer, to question what you think you know about value. Because the next time a penny crosses your palm, it might not be just a penny. It might be a mistake worth a fortune. And once you know that, you'll never look at your change the same way again. What if the most ordinary penny you've ever ignored, the one rattling in your cup holder, the one hiding at the bottom of a junk drawer, what if that penny could rewrite your future? Because tonight, we're diving into a coin that almost nobody takes seriously. A coin stamped by the billions. A coin you've probably spent without a second thought. And yet, whispered through auction rooms and collector forums, there's a chilling possibility attached to it. The 1979 D. Lincoln cent, a Denver minted penny that, under the wrong light, looks completely normal. But under the right conditions, it becomes something else entirely. A coin that has sparked rumors of six-figure and even seven-figure values. A coin tied to reported sales as high as $844,000 in top condition. And yes, claims that certain examples, if proven and authenticated, could push into the millions. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? That's exactly why you need to hear this, because the greatest treasures are never announced. They hide in plain sight. And this story doesn't begin with riches. It begins with a mistake. In 1979, the U.S. Mint was under pressure. Demand for cents was enormous. Copper prices were rising. Production was relentless. Denver alone struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents that year. Machines ran hot. Dies were down. Human oversight thinned. And in that environment, something dangerous happens. Errors slip through. Most were tiny, harmless, invisible to the untrained eye. But a handful were catastrophic in the numismatic sense, the kind of errors that turn pocket change into legacy wealth. But here's the twist. The 1979 D cent isn't famous because of one single error. It's famous because of how many different things can go wrong with it. That's where the story gets unsettling. Imagine this. A mint worker installs a die that's already misaligned. The strike hits slightly off-center. Not enough to reject. Not enough to stop production. Just enough to leave a subtle distortion. Lincoln's portrait shifts. Letters creep toward the rim. The coin passes inspection. Now imagine that same die continuing to strike thousands more coins as it deteriorates. Microcracks form. Metal flows where it shouldn't. Details double, smear, or vanish. Suddenly, you're not holding a penny anymore. You're holding evidence of a moment the system failed. And collectors live for those moments. One of the most talked about categories connected to the 1979 D cent is dramatic double die varieties. Not the obvious cartoonish kind people expect, but the dangerous kind. The kind that hides in plain sight. Doubling so subtle it takes magnification. Doubling that affects Lincoln's ear, the date, or the letters in Liberty. Here's the question that stops people cold. How many of those were spent before anyone noticed? No alarms. No recalls. Just coins released into circulation, quietly. And then there are the off-metal strikes. Coins struck on the wrong planchet. Sometimes intended for foreign coins, sometimes for entirely different denominations. A cent that weighs wrong. Sounds wrong. Feels wrong in the hand. These are the coins that make professional graders pause. Because when an off-metal error is real and verified, the value can explode. 5 figures, 6 figures, and in extreme, historic cases across the Lincoln cent series, 7. That's where the million-dollar whispers come from. Not because every 1979 D is valuable, but because the right one is life-changing. Now let's talk about condition, because this is where the story takes a sharp turn. Most people assume old equals valuable. But in modern era coins, perfection is power. A flawless strike combined with a major error is the holy grail. Coins graded at the highest mint state levels, preserved with blazing luster and untouched surfaces, become unicorns. And this is where reported sales come into play that you'll hear stories, some confirmed, some debated, of elite-era Lincoln cents selling for staggering sums. Private transactions, sealed auctions, coins changing hands quietly among high-end collectors who don't need headlines. Point one reported sale tied to a top condition, spectacularly flawed Lincoln cent has circulated at a figure as high as $844,000. Was it public? No. Was it disputed? Absolutely. But did it happen in the upper shadows of the collector world? That's the part nobody can fully dismiss. Because rarity doesn't always announce itself with a press release that here's the uncomfortable truth. The most valuable coins are often the least understood. And the 1979 D-cent sits right at that edge, common enough to be overlooked, complex enough to hide monsters. Think about that. How many people have rolled these pennies? Spent them? Tossed them into Coinstar machines? How many chances have already slipped away? And here's another twist that resets everything you think you know. Some of the most valuable error coins weren't discovered by experts. They were found by ordinary people that are retirees sorting rolls at the kitchen table. A truck driver killing time with pocket change. A kid emptying a jar inherited from a grandparent. No special tools. No insider access. Just curiosity. That's the part that should make your pulse quicken, because this isn't about luck. It's about awareness. The 1979 D-cent demands a second look. Look at the date. Look at the mint mark. Look at the spacing, the weight, the color, the sharpness of Lincoln's features. Ask yourself what feels off, because off is where value lives. And here's the cliffhanger most people never consider. The next record-setting coin hasn't been found yet at least, not recognized. It could be sitting in a roll right now, in a dresser drawer, in a coffee can under a workbench, waiting for someone who knows what questions to ask. What if that someone is you? What if the penny you've ignored for decades isn't ordinary at all, but misunderstood? That's the power of this story. Not the guarantees, not the hype, the possibility. The possibility that the smallest denomination in your pocket could be the biggest discovery of your life. The next time you see a 1979 D. Lincoln cent, don't rush past it. Don't dismiss it as common. Pause. Look closer. Because history doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers from copper and zinc, asking a single dangerous question. Are you paying attention?